pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're going to flip the script a little bit here. The discussion on the expungement fair is going to be first instead of the bond issuance piece, Judge.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I don't know how much background I need to give at this point. I don't know what you all know about expungements from a legal perspective, but just very briefly, expungements is a legal tool, it's a legal remedy that can be used in certain circumstances where somebody who's gotten themselves in a bit of trouble can potentially have their records expunged or cleared, so that from the point of view of future employers, they won't have access to the information of what happened to this individual, so that it would be easier for that individual to go out and obtain meaningful employment and become a productive member of our community. I think that's very important. I want to tell you right now at the outset, this is not for serious crimes or for serious criminals. This is for people who got into a tight spot, either pled guilty or were found guilty, and were given usually supervision, occasionally conditional discharge when we're talking about sealing records. But things like maybe simple battery, theft, revoked, suspended licenses, things like that. This will not include domestic battery, will not include DUIs. Those records must be maintained forever and for obvious reasons. But if these people fit specific parameters, including that they have successfully completed all of their conditions of supervision or conditional discharge, and at least 2 to 3 years has gone by, depending on the statute as to the individual offense, has gone by without any other issues, then these people should be given the opportunity to go out and seek meaningful employment. Now, so there is this by law, a way for these people to file petitions for expungement. However, it can be very daunting. It can be very difficult, a complex procedure to go through. And there are 24 judicial circuits in the state of Illinois. There's just a couple of them that do what we can commonly call expungement fair. They can call it new beginnings. There's several different names that you can give it, but we've sort of chosen on Fresh Start as a name, and where we are going to plan this fair, this initiative where, and we have been planning this, by the way, since last July. We've been meeting with this. Your representative on that committee has been Mr. Brooks, who's been there every meeting, has been very important to us in helping us, because he has done so many of these through his church and his community. He's given us some great ideas. But we're going to do this initiative right now. The date is set for June 22nd of 2019, where we will have things set up on the first floor of the courthouse where people will be able to come in and to go through the process, where there will be everybody from all the departments that are necessary under the judiciary, along with Circuit Clerk Andrea Chasteen, who's been terrific on this, and she's been to every meeting, and she's taken a primary role in this also. The Sheriff's Department will be included at some point to discuss security issues as we go through this planning process. We expect to limit the number of people that will be able to service on that June 22nd date. It's a Saturday. We expect it to be from about 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. We're going to have many employees that will be working that day. We're also going to need probably a couple of dozen at least volunteers who we will have trained by an outfit up in Chicago who does this, to train these volunteers to be sure that they get bring in all the people in, find out if they're eligible, and if they're eligible, file the petition on their behalf, and then go from there. The law is very specific. If they are eligible, they will file the petition, and we will do everything that we can to be sure that under the law that their petitions would be granted if they're eligible. However, the statute also says, and rightfully so, that objections can be made to those petitions by either the State's Attorney's Office or the Attorney General's Office or the Illinois State Police, and they would have the ability to file those objections within 60 days. And on that June 22nd date at the fair, we actually give court dates to these people after 60 days so they can come into court and at that point in time have their petition ruled upon. Jackie?
You mentioned objections, and you mentioned a couple of potential groups that could object. I'm just assuming there might be a victim involved somewhere along the line. Either a store owner, if it was a minor theft, or you mentioned battery but non-spousal. Let's say it's two neighbors fighting. Do those individuals that might have been involved in the altercation or the situation, do they get advised that this person has applied for expungement? And I'm just curious because I don't know exactly which types of offenses are eligible.
And that's something important, that information that we need to get out there. We are currently preparing a pamphlet, a brochure, that will provide everybody with at least the initial knowledge they need to go through the pre-registration part of this so they can determine at the outset if they're eligible. Basically, the answer to your question is going to be no. There's nothing in the law that provides that they would be required to have notice because the statute already contains the factors that are necessary that I mentioned before, that they have done everything that they need to do, including if there's a victim in theft, that for instance, that the store has been reimbursed completely, restitution's been fully paid, whatever's been done, and that, and again, we're not talking about aggravated battery or domestic battery, we're talking about the simple battery, so that usually doesn't mean a lot of medical, for instance, but that stuff all could have been part of their conditional discharge or more likely supervision if that was the sentence.
Okay, and I'd like to volunteer.
Terrific. All right. And it's important because when we get those, all of you are some of the first people that we want to get this information to. And quite frankly, this has been planned, as I mentioned, since last July, and we're working on it still, but this is the very first moment that we've gone public with this. And we want the public to know this is coming. We want them to know in every way possible that this is a possibility for them. This has been done, I know of 2 other circuits. Cook County does it, and a circuit down south does it. So not a lot of circuits have done this, but we know that it has been incredibly successful in those other circuits.
You're talking about expungement for people who actually have been convicted of something, of a minor crime.
If I may, before you ask your question, if they have received supervision, they were not convicted.
Okay.
And expungement applies basically to those who've been given supervision. But if they're not eligible for expungement because they received a conviction, the next step is whether or not they're eligible to have their conviction sealed, which is still, from an employment standpoint, very important.
Well, the other thing I think is important from an employment standpoint is having arrest expunged. Now, very many people can be falsely accused of something, they're arrested, it shows they were arrested. What it doesn't show is that when they got in front of a judge and the judge seeing the facts, and there were no facts, that the judge will dismiss the case.
You are correct. If the case is dismissed for any reason, if they are acquitted, if they're found not guilty at trial, a lot of people, a lot of defendants in that situation, they might leave happy, but they might leave not knowing that that there's still going to be a record of this. There's still going to be, that needs to be expunged.
Well, that's what I'm trying to get out there. If you're going to help with this, if a person was arrested and it was dismissed, that arrest goes on the record unless it's expunged.
Correct.
The arrest can be expunged, I guess.
And by the way,
my next question, is that a part of this?
And by the way, expungement means, as part of this process, that order means that whoever has whatever law enforcement agency has their fingerprints, for instance, they're destroyed.
So I want to make it clear that, very often people are arrested mistakenly. I don't want to say mistakenly. They thought there was probable cause at the time, but when they got into the case, there was no merit to it or nothing that supported it. Factually dismissed. And now I'm going to get into an area that may be a little touchy. So if somebody is arrested or accused or falsely accused of domestic violence, and that goes for men and women, it goes both ways, is that eligible to be expunged? Because, people in the heat of an argument or spouse, they'll sometimes do things they probably shouldn't.
If you are acquitted or if the case is dismissed, the answer is yes, because the case never happened in court to a finding of guilt, so the answer is yes. If there is a plea of guilty, though, it will not be eligible for
Correct.
expungement.
I understand. The other thing I want to know is sex crimes. Are they treated differently? I mean, if somebody was found guilty of having pictures, say child pornography pictures, or maybe, and didn't wind up receiving probation, and then went into counseling, whatever. Is that eligible?
No, those sorts of felony convictions are not. That would, of course, be considered to be a serious crime, a violent crime, sex crime. Those crimes would not be eligible upon conviction.
Good. Okay.
One more question. Hopefully only one more. How long has this been a law? Because you just mentioned like Cook County and one other county, and how long has this been on the books?
It's been on the books for decades, but this is the first time that people are circuits are starting to do fairs or initiatives to bring people.
What caused you to do this?
What caused me to do this?
Justice,
I'm good at it. I'm in support. What caused your light bulb to
You
go
were
on?
19 years old and got caught with some marijuana. Should your whole life be ruined?
Two things. One is that we have talked about this at the Conference of Chief Judges, of which I've been a member for 6 years. So this has been talked about occasionally, and I began liking the idea a while back. But it's a massive undertaking. It's just massive, and you have to bring all the employees in on a Saturday. The issue of payment or comp time, plus volunteers that will help out. It's a big undertaking, Vicki, and we're limited. And the other major thing is that our director of the Family Violence Coordinating Council is Leanne Lance. She came to me last year, probably June or July, and also made the suggestion and said that she wanted to be one of the ones that would spearhead it. And as soon as I had that volunteer, it really, in my mind, I thought, okay, then this is a good way to start this. So Leanne Lance gets a lot of credit for this too.
I do understand needing a chief volunteer. You just do.
Okay, Don and then Jen.
I was going to say that probably you're seeing a lot more public interest in it, because it used to be that for somebody to have a background investigation run off to do a job required you to be in some position where you had access to the money or funds or whatever for the company or whatever. Nowadays, every minimum wage job that's out there just about does a background investigation on their employees before they go to work there. So it's really having a bigger effect on the public now trying to find a job where they may have something that they can get off their record that won't keep them from getting to better positions going forward.
That's exactly right, especially in an economy right now where there's jobs out there. I'm sorry. Yeah?
If I could just make one other comment, and Reverend Brooks, you might want to chime in here. You should know there's been a lot of efforts by churches, by other groups to try to get sponging stuff. So they've been doing it. It's something that has been going on outside the court. I mean, so there has been a lot of efforts. Workforce investment, I believe, refers people, because, a young person who was maybe caught with a small amount of marijuana, and now he's with 19 and now he's 30. This is still on there and he's still not getting jobs because of it. But there has been a lot of efforts within communities. So, and the reason I'm mentioning this is we just don't rely on this program. This will be a great program because it'll draw a lot of attention and a lot of people. We can get the word out. But Mr. Brooks has been involved in this for quite some time, and getting young people, young adults, some of these things removed. So there has been a lot of effort. It's nothing new.
But I haven't seen anything anywhere in our county except Joliet. Now maybe I don't subscribe to the right stuff.
Workforce helps. The Workforce Investment Board will refer people, or they tell them you need to get this expunged. Go see, go over to Reverend Brooks's church, and you'll get help or whatever. Right. Yeah.
But now it's more of a county-wide effort.
We fully anticipate that everything that Jim just mentioned in churches, the charitable agencies, workforce, we expect to use them to bring people into us, because as good of work as they have all done, and I give Herb Brooks a ton of credit for everything that he's been doing, as he's mentioned himself, and he will tell you, there's nothing like having it all arranged where you come to the courthouse, one-stop shopping, and you can walk out with an idea if you're going to be expunged.
I was afraid, and thank you, Judge. I've been doing it for almost 20 years, and thank you for inviting me to this, because if there are no teachers here, Judge, my grammar, yours is much gooder. Trust me, it is. So it's a wonderful program. But I wanted to ask, though, and let you know, we do have a website. I don't know if Andrea have updated the change of the date. It was June 8, now it's 22, but it's also pre-registration. So I think it's a much better program, even though we've been doing it for almost 20 years. But we can accomplish it on June 22nd, and one day it's a much better program. So I do appreciate that.
Thank you, and thank you. But the what Herb and I both want to get out also is that this is not for serious offenses. This is not something that the public needs to be concerned about in terms of expunging records for those serious offenses. We also want to get out there that this is not some sort of trick by government to bring in people who, have arrest warrants. This is not something like that. This is truly a good program that's going to be great for the county and great for the individuals. On the other hand, if you do have a warrant out there, we don't want you showing up at this expungement fair. This is not going to be for you, because if you have some current difficulties, then you're not in compliance with the rules that would make you eligible for the expungement to begin with. So we want to be sure that, and that's what this pre-registration will help us and help the individuals determine. And we expect that we will have, whatever our limit is, 100, 150, 200, maybe 150 is what we're talking about currently. I predict that we will be turning a significant number away, which we all feel bad about, but we do want to get one of these under our belts first. The space is going to be an issue, because we want to keep this on the first floor of the courthouse, because it's going to be on a Saturday, it's going to be after holiday court, and we don't want people up necessarily in the second, third, or fourth floors. So we're going to try to keep this down from a security standpoint, also on the first floor. And we're going to use the jury assembly room. We've already walked through everything, and the 3 courtrooms on the first floor, the hallway space, the bailiff space. We're going to use it all. But even outside if we need to. We'll have tents if we need to. But we want to be sure that we have the space that will handle however many. After we're done with this one, we'll know what we can handle after that. And we'll want to expand. The 3rd district that is doing this right, has been doing this for 4 or 5 years. They have multiple counties in their judicial circuit. And they go around every year to a different county to do theirs. Their combined population of all their counties in their circuit is probably less than half of what Will County is. And they get hundreds every year. And so this is something that's it's not a small thing.
Tyler?
My question is this only open to people who went through our circuit, or is it open to anybody in the state of Illinois, or like, who's eligible to come?
It's open to anybody who has a Will County case. So whether or not you're a resident or a non-resident, if you rolled through Will County, had an issue, and it happened in Will County, if it's a Will County file, then it's a Will County, then you can do it, wherever you come from.
One more question. I'm sure Leanne's already on this. You mentioned, or Herb mentioned about it being on Andrea's webpage. Is there a flyer? Is there some stuff we can promote on Facebook? I mean, it's about getting it in front of the people that would want to apply.
We absolutely want you to get to your constituents and let them know this is available. This is the nut of the pamphlet that we're preparing.
Okay.
There's going to be some changes made. I just talked to Roger Holland. We're having a meeting next Wednesday, and as our next meeting. I expect that we'll have everything worked out then, and then I expect that this information, certainly in the month of January, will be given to everybody. The timing of this is, we want to be sure this gets out to the public, however it's going to happen, through agencies, through churches, through you, through media, in the next 60 days or so. Then we'll start the pre-registration process immediately after that, and then it will give us a couple of months to go through that process before we actually get to the actual event in June. So that's our timing right now. We'll need to find volunteers, and I don't think we're going to have a problem getting those volunteers. We'll get a date probably sometime a little later, maybe March or April, where we'll have the firm from Chicago come in and do the training of everybody on one time that will train for these purposes. The state's attorney will be involved also, public defender's office, probation, interpreters, bailiffs, most of my departments, and as I said, technology, record keeping is going to be way up there, and those 2 words immediately go to Andrea Chastain and her people. She is going to be very, very important to this process. Andrea, you're here, aren't you?
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Andrea, for your help. And she is, I was told she agreed to be the captain of the whole pre-registration process, so I hope that's true, because I just said it out loud. So Andrea is very important to this. So I really appreciate the time. I could talk for a long time, but I saw your agenda, so I think I probably overstayed my welcome.
Before you leave us, Judge, are there any more questions on this panel? No? Okay, Julie?
I was wondering, does that include minor drug offenses, for example, marijuana? We know a lot of young adults that, make a mistake, and later on it might cause to haunt them, so.
That's a good question, and the answer is yes, it can. In fact, if it's a relatively minor drug-related offense like possession of marijuana, something like that, it absolutely is intended for those individuals, and in fact, by the expungement statute, it's required that before they can get their records expunged, they need to pass a drug test. So, and we intend to have that set up, either to have it done during the pre-registration process before June 22nd, or possibly it might be done on that day as well. So yes, it is intended for people with those issues.
We have one more question here. and then we'll let you go.
Judge, Ms. Berkowitz brought this up. Of course, things like marijuana has changed a little over the years. So now, there's not necessarily arrests made, or many municipalities, and in the county, we make some ordinance violations. I guess that's like getting a ticket. I mean, is there records of that? I mean, I'm just wondering, people who have had like small amounts of marijuana, and there's other crimes, it could be alcohol, it could be whatever, it could be a number. If it's an ordinance violation, should that person be concerned? Is that on record? I'm just...
It's a relatively new law, maybe a year and a half, maybe 2.5 years. I'm not really sure. I'm sure. Pardon me?
I think we've done the ordinance thing.
Maybe time flies, I know, but maybe it was that long. But for those individuals, since that law was passed, and go through that violation, their records are automatically expunged by the clerk's office after. It's 1 year, Andrea?
Yeah, it goes around the CL cases. Yeah.
It's a specific line of cases that they're called CL cases that are just for that purpose, for relatively minor amounts of possession of marijuana.
Who do we contact to volunteer?
Who's getting your name right now?
We will. Roger Holland probably just wrote your name down, Mark.
I'll remember, don't worry.
But we'll get the information out. Tyler, Mr. Markham, as chairman of the Judicial Committee, I'm hoping that he'll be able to start attending these meetings, and next Wednesday, and we'll get the time out. Herb will be there, and I'm hoping that they will be my liaison to your board. So to look for. Right.
Tyler's got a name.
I can also help coordinate the board.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.
Appreciate that. Okay. Anything else for us, Judge?
Not for me.
Okay, thank you so much for agreeing to be here this morning.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Okay, we're going to flip back then to the bond issuance.
Sure. I was keeping all on the agenda, and I also printed out.
So last week, we talked a little bit about our next bond issuance, and we had some questions come up. So this is just a little bit more information that people had asked for. The first page is just an outline of what you'll have. So we can go to page 2. Page 2 is a history of how we've spent our RTA dollars from 2015 through 2018 fiscal years. We spent roughly half of the RTA revenue, and this includes not only what comes in every year, but some of the reserve funds on road construction projects. The debt service for the 2010 bonds, which is we call them the road bonds, that is committed from RTA funds. The other piece that we used, and we used it a little bit not as expected. We had always intended to use a piece of the RTA revenue to meet debt service requirements. What happened when we issued the bonds in 2016 was they were issued in August. There was no payment due in 2016. However, we neglected to plan for the abatement, which had to happen that fall. That abatement was a little over $11 million. Unfortunately, we had hoped to use some RTA funds to fund part of the public safety complex. There's only one pot of money, so we can't use it for multiple purposes. So in 2016, we needed to use some RTA funds to abate the bonds. And 17 and 18, those amounts are for debt service. The other thing that happened during this, and this is something that is difficult to plan for, there's other things going on at the county building projects. So one of the other things that took up quite a bit of money in the RTA revenue was the radio system. It was almost $6 million. So that was taken out of the RTA funds. So while we had initially talked about paying cash for part of the public safety complex, we didn't have the funds available to do that. We had to meet our requirement for abatement. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, not my understanding. So I'm still, you got a lot of numbers, still not adding up to. If we use 11 and 2.6 and 2.8, we use that, we talked about paying cash for the $32 million that we spent. Because we had a big chunk in RTA that we thought we could use. I realize we used a portion of that, but what about the other money that we used? The way this lays out on this sheet, everything is paid for by bond proceeds.
Yes. My recollection was that initially the public safety complex was not all the way at 32 million. My recollection is that we were going to use 15 million in RTA funds to pay for it. And we've used just about 15 between the abatement and the radio. Now that it's a little different combination, but I mean, there's only so much money. I think the public safety project continued to grow. It ended up being $30-some million. I don't think that was the intent when we first started. That's my recollection. This information that I provided for you, Rashawn helped me put it together. It was reviewed by Melissa. It was reviewed by the people who manage the capital project. So we all are of a similar thought that we did what we could with the funds we had available.
I also see money coming out in 2018 for animal control and bond proceeds. Why would that happen?
What was the last thing you said, Mike?
Animal control,
No, the last part.
there's bond proceeds paying.
Wait, you're on the next page. Oh, okay. All right, can we get through this and then we'll jump?
I just for clarification, Karen. We talked about paying for cash for the law enforcement facility. But I don't remember us ever saying, we said basically it's going to come out of cash reserve. We didn't say RTA, we didn't say, as a matter of fact, I don't think we ever mentioned the RTA pot of money. We just said it'll come out of cash reserve. But it appears you're saying it came out of the RTA pot of money, because there was other reserves there. I mean, the county has other cash reserves.
Well, the corporate fund has a cash reserve in motor fuel, but motor fuel is not intended.
That's restricted.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's restricted.
I mean, the other thing that's happening in this is the Department of Transportation is being required to identify funds for the Weber Road project. There's only so much money. And again, I go back, our understanding was that we would pay up to 15 million in cash, not for the whole building.
I think you're correct. Yeah, we talked about portions to be paid for, and I do think you said, well, at least half can be paid out of cash reserve. The other half could come out of. So, I agree with you. I recollect those conversations. And then as it went on, we said, well, 32 million would come out of cash reserves. Probably would have been easier. It would have been explained back then if it was coming out of bond proceeds.
Well, we did talk about bond proceeds at one point. We said we were going to take the bond proceeds temporarily and then replenish the bond proceeds with the cash.
Yeah, I recollect that conversation. Okay.
Which never got replenished.
But we did a small amount of that, but not,
We did do we did.
because we could only go back so far.
We were only allowed to go back for the date of the issue. I mean, we
A
did
few
go
months
back.
before the ordinance.
But also let me say
There was
this.
restrictions for us on that.
And I think that's like this is, we didn't discuss, the financing and the abatement part of the bonds and so forth that had to be funded. Matter of fact, even in this year's budget, we did have that discussion after the budget was presented by the county executive, because we recognize there's going to be this shortfall, you know, address it now. So I do understand what happened. I understand that we may not have had an understanding, or maybe, I want to say Vicki never told us, or maybe there was other conversations, I don't know. But my point is that, you know, obviously it seems Melissa and the finance officers were aware of it. So I guess what I'm going to say is that, yeah, I understand that it's not exactly what we thought it was going to be, but it is what it is, and we had the funders.
Right.
Now, Mike, you still think there's a little more money there?
In 2016, when we did do this issuance, I want to let everybody know, the abatement, I forgot about the abatement.
We all do.
But
Sure.
that was something that, when that happened, we kind of, we gathered together, we put our heads together, and that's what we did to take care of that. But that was $11 million that was unaccounted for us.
For new people, I don't know if you want to explain what the
Yeah.
abatement is.
And maybe for us old people too, because we always
Go
get
ahead, Melissa.
confused.
When we issue, when the county has the ability to issue government general obligation alternate revenue bonds. The bonds are guaranteed is a general obligation of the county. If we do not abate, and abate means we take the money and set it aside for the next year's payment. So last October, we put the money aside in a special fund for this year's debt service. If we don't take that action, the amount of debt service gets automatically added to property taxes.
So,
Automatically.
an easier way of saying it is that we pledge property tax for the bonds, but we use alternate revenues to actually pay that. We don't use the real estate, so you have to abate it back. To not use the actual dollars, not to use the real estate taxes. Okay.
So when we didn't do that,
Oh, we did it
We did.
Yes.
you're saying we didn't abate the levy?
No.
We did later, we
You said you
forgot.
forgot.
We did not plan for it.
Correct it.
We didn't, oh, you just forgot that you did.
The financing of it.
Right.
The
When we
budgetary
issued the bonds in August, we were focused on we didn't have to make a payment until next year.
Right.
We did not plan for it. Once we realized that, we immediately abated the money. I mean, it was abated with the rest of the bonds. So we did what we were
Should
supposed
have
to
been
do.
part of our plan.
So just to, in layman's terms, make it real simple. Just think of it as your house mortgage. So you plan to buy a house. You have your escrow account. You know that payment for that next year is going to be X amount of dollars. So you want to pre-plan and go ahead and set that money aside, put it away in your quote-unquote escrow account, so it's already there for the next year when you can. This is simply what we had to do once those bonds had been issued in 2016. We had to set that money aside because we knew that that first payment would be coming due the following year.
It's legally required to issue the bond back.
We didn't plan for that, so there was some scramble to find that 11 million we put away. Now I understand.
Yeah, so if there's no more questions, we move to the next page, and I think this is where Mr. Goodwin thought that question was. This is how we spent down the bond proceeds by year, by project. So I believe for the animal control, one of the things that we did is there was a resolution that because the animal control budget did not include the building, we were going to use bond proceeds to help pay for their portion of it, and they're going to reimburse the bond fund. There was a resolution, now I didn't attach that here or look up the number, but
We couldn't amend the budget at that time
Right.
based on Mary's opinion.
so this was just to get them started. There isn't any intent that they will spend any more than this. They'll be spending their own funds because it's in the 2019 budget. So you can see in 2016, we issued bonds of $175 million. We received a premium. We had some expenses. The net of that was $205 million. We spent a little over $8.6 million in 2016, $34.6 million in 2017, $60.1 million in 2018. When I did this, there was $108 million left in the bond proceeds. We're up to a little over $10 million a month on the courthouse. I mean, when they're moving fast and furious, we're paying for that. So we do anticipate that this 108 will be spent down. And the rule of thumb is that bond proceeds should be spent within about 3 years of your issuance. So we have till August. If we go a little past that, I think there's a little leeway, but the bulk of it should be spent. What we don't want to happen is that there be a, oops, we have to stop now and go through the whole process to have an intent resolution and do all the public, we want to issue now so we have funds on hand. The two projects are going at the same time. We want to make sure we have enough funds available, which takes us to the next page unless there's any questions. Okay.
2016. It's on the 8,604,000. Now, in our bond document and in some resolutions we've had, because we didn't have the bond proceeds yet, we were using cash. So out of that 8 million, how much of that was money that was going back into the RTAs?
I don't know the number off the top of my head.
But there should have been money that went
There
back.
was bills that the RTA reimbursed.
I'd be interested to know.
The bond funds reimbursed the RTA funds the way it was.
Right. So
I don't know the dollar amount.
I'd just be interested in how much that was.
Okay, I can get that for you.
So suffice it to say, we use no cash for the public safety complex. We use bond proceeds for the entire public safety complex, and we use bond proceeds for the debt service.
No, you cannot use bond proceeds for debt service. Instead of using cash for the public safety complex, we use that cash for debt service. You cannot use bond proceeds for debt service. It's restricted. Bond proceeds can only be spent on what you identify in your offering, which was for capital projects. So I think there's a little flexibility on which capital projects, but it still can only be capital projects. You can't use it for operations. Any other questions about the? Okay. And now we're down to the crux of it. This is our best estimate of what we have left on the courthouse and the health department projects. For the courthouse, the subcontractor, the cost of that work is $148 million. Construction itself, $32.5. So that comes to a subtotal of $181.4 million. That is for the court with built out on floors 8 and 9. Added to that is what they consider owner's soft costs and FF&E furniture and fixtures. So outfit the inside of the building. That's another $24 million. So that brings the expected cost to $205. We've already paid $63 million, so we have remaining $142 million or $142.3 million left to pay. I do want to point out that that expected cost does not include the owner contingency, which is $9.6 million. So if the number seems large, there's still the ability, we still have the projection that we could spend up to $9.6 million. We're not asking or suggesting that we would bond up to that amount. Does anybody have questions about that? So the health department, the numbers are a little bit more estimates. The courthouse, those numbers are pretty refined. We've done all the bids. We really have good numbers for everything. They do still make work order changes, but I don't think anything has changed the overall total. I think we've reduced a few things and increased a few things.
And what's the contingency on there?
I want to say it's 4.5 million in the construction part. And if you want to know any more than that,
We
it's
still could
big.
come we still could come closer to 30.
We could, but I don't, I think we, I would suggest we bond for cash at this point. So the health department, we haven't bid out a lot of it, we've done a few pieces of it. These estimates are best available for construction, demolition of the site, the abatement, 25.5 million. Owner costs, parking, soft costs, architectural fees, 5.5. Furniture, fixture, and equipment, another 2 million. So that's an expected cost of 33, and we've paid just about a little over 2 million, which leaves almost 31 million outstanding remaining. So those combined are 173 million. We have 108, which brings us to 65. I've been talking with Wells Fargo, and what I asked and what they are trying to put together is that we would issue bonds to receive 65 million. So we wouldn't be issuing 65 million in bonds.
They're gonna estimate the premium.
Yes.
Right, so 65 million, I see that's potentially what we could need, although we may be $4 million short. Right? So why would we bond for, including the contingency, or even all of this money right now? A lot of our payments are coming next year. So why are we going to bond for the full amount right now and not half?
Well, the intent or the ordinance expires.
I understand the
in
ordinance.
April. The volatility in the market, which doesn't have a huge impact on long term, it's more on short term, but it's still affecting the bond market. The other thing for me is we have other issues to address going forward. We have to have employees for the buildings we're building. And I think we have other things to focus on. If we have the 65 million, we should be able to pay for these 2 buildings and focus on other issues that we have coming up.
Mike, okay. I think we talked about it at the last executive. We got the roof on the jail coming out.
Right.
They were talking about having enough funds to pay for that, and there could have been other projects. That's just my recollection. And from what I understood, it was going to be a pretty expensive roof that we were going to be raising, like a couple million. 4. Oh, 4. So there's your 4 million.
Yeah, I get that. I'm just wondering why we're doing it all now.
Well, if we don't do it now, then we have to go through the process again. And that's I want to say it takes several months to do. We have the ability to do it now, and I don't think anyone thinks 65 is too much. It's not, I don't think we're issuing debt for more than we're going to spend. That I would be concerned about. I agree with you that there's the potential that we could spend a little bit more than this, and we do have the ability to issue bank qualified at 10 million a year, that's all you can do in a year. You can't issue any other debt. So for me, this is the opportunity. In the last quarter of 2018, and I'm pulling this information from what Wells Fargo provided for us, there wasn't a lot of bond activity at the municipal level. I think that this quarter might be the time to hit.
I agree with
And I don't know, for me, I would like to have this, I'd like to know that this is over and done with, and if we need to issue bonds, it'll be a small dollar amount.
And if we have the money left over, we have other projects that, we've got a list from Joel that's 3 miles long.
So we abated last year.
Yes.
For this year, based on 35 to 40. So now what do we do? We're going to go out for 58.
Well, we'll have to identify where that's going to come from. That I know we can pay the debt service, the abatement we're going to have to we have to work that out.
We've identified
The debt service.
Yeah, we've identified where those funds are coming from when we finalize the budget,
As far
but,
as the debt service.
right,
But the abatement,
We haven't.
we didn't abate
we had,
this year
because
for
we didn't,
58.
because we
abated for
didn't,
35.
and that was a preliminary estimate, because we didn't have all of the
We have about
information,
half.
or the definite number that we would go out to bond for, so we'll have to plan, have to plan for that as well.
The corporate fund, we ended the year at a little under 25%. That could be a possible place to take a few $1 million from. I'd like to stay away from RTA if we can. I mean, I think whoever road is coming up, even this new issuance, there's going to be some level of RTA that covers debt service, and that's going to go on for the 30 years of the bond term.
We had planned that already
Right,
anyway,
right,
based on potentially 275.
Right.
So that's okay. And we already planned for Weber Road. That money's sitting there.
Well, and the other thing is, this issuance was built into the plan. We had always intended to do an issuance in 2019. So the 2016 bonds, the debt service payment drops in 2019 to accommodate debt service here. So paying the debt service is not necessarily the challenge, it is the abatement. So, I would hope to bring back to you next month a little bit more information about where we would cover the abatement from, if there needs to be any adjustment to the budget for debt service. We have some preliminary information from Wells Fargo. I mean, it looks like if we move forward, if the board agrees, that we're talking about maybe issuing bonds March 21st, which is the board meeting date. So we can all watch.
Watch the sale.
Well, maybe not during the meeting, that's probably not good. Watching, but maybe we could put on the overhead, because I have to tell you, the $175 million was the first one I did on my own. I'd helped Paul in the past, but it was very exciting to sit at my computer and watch the sales.
So are we prohibited from buying some of these bonds, and how do you do it?
Well, I can't sell them to you. You have to go through a broker.
Well, I mean, they're pretty good rate of return, so.
Well, it's a guaranteed rate of return, and they're tax exempt, which is what makes them attractive.
They sell. So do you go to a broker like Edward Jones or something?
Yes.
That's the other
That's
side.
right, for you?
So I guess the first thing I'd like to ask for is if we have consensus here. Mary has suggested that we move this forward to the full board meeting, and she's going to research for us whether we need a resolution or not. I mean, we have the resolution or ordinance that allows the issuance, but we do have a lot of new board members. So I would ask that if everyone's in agreement, that maybe we can.
Okay, is there anyone not in agreement? You have a question from the room?
What is the window? You mentioned March 21 for the bonding. After, what is the window that we have to go for the bonding?
The ordinance expires in April.
In April.
So at that point, we have no authority. We have to go start the whole process over again.
Correct. Okay.
It takes about 60 days from start to finish. We have to put together a preliminary offering statement, and then that goes out to the market to spike interest. And then there's a lot of documents that require legal review. I mean, there's a lot of
Sound like you got
back and
interest
forth.
right here at the board, so go ahead.
Yeah, they're 100,000.
Yeah.
What?
They're 100,000.
I got that much.
Okay. Is there any unreadiness? Is there any unreadiness in this group about moving that forward to the board? Yes, please.
I'll move to move the bond issue.
And a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay,
Thank you.
just a few more things. So next month at the Finance Committee, I'd like to bring back the information about the co-managers. We talked about that last time. We had done a RFQ, we identified 5. I have received from Wells Fargo how they performed on the last issuance, and I think probably we might not use all 5 again. But I haven't had time to kind of really dig into it, and I want to have a conversation with Spirit Financial, to see what would best suit the county.
Okay, is there a question here or no?
Oh, no, sorry, that was
Okay.
before.
Okay.
Bond counsel would be my recommendation that we would continue to use Ray Fricky. However, we are going to look for another firm for disclosure counsel. The cost of that is not significant in the realm of the bond issuance. So Spirit Financial has put out some requests for quotes on our behalf to firms that they work with regularly. So we can look at those and make a selection from that.
Okay.
Yeah, so the preliminary schedule that was provided by Wells, it would be that the sale would be on March 21st. I mean, it's a lot of moving pieces. We certainly could go later maybe, but I don't think we want to go into the month of April because that is when the ordinance expires.
We would have to have a special board meeting in it.
Yeah, so I think,
Clean it up.
and I think at the last meeting, and I hope again that you're comfortable with me continuing to move forward, working with Wells to kind of get this process going.
I am. Is there anyone who is not?
Okay.
Leslie's been working quite full.
Yes, yes.
I mean, I don't know if everybody's aware, we've worked with Victor Chang for many, many years. Victor retired.
Oh, good for him.
He was older than I thought. I go, how old are you? He's 65. We go, well, you aged well, But everybody knows Leslie, she was always with,
Yeah,
she always did all the numbers.
Not in politics.
So she's now taking over at least for Will College.
Well, and I'm not sure anyone's aware, they might think a lot of it, but the $175 million issuance, Leslie was the lead at Wells.
Leslie did those.
Rashawn and I did it for the county, and Rafaelita did for Spirit Financial, so it was almost all women-led.
Oh, that's
And
right.
that's a big bond issue.
Well, you're right, Leslie has been doing it.
Yes. And so we'll look forward to seeing more of her going forward.
Yes.
Thank you. That was it?
That's it, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay. Was there any other old business? No, I think not. All right. Okay, moving into the new business, the governance rules and procedures for the board. I know that we did have some items that came forward today, some glitch in the system, and some of them may or may not, Mary, need the review. Can you speak to that?
Well, that's, I don't know that they need the legal review, but I expect that the committee would want to discuss whether or not those changes are something they're on board with.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Yes.
That's not in that
packet.
I'm
sorry, I will get
you.
Yeah.
I've got a red line. Yeah, I've got a red line. Mine never comes up with the 4 lights.
We don't have a new, we don't have a, we just have the right.
Okay.
And then so the first general question I would have to Mary, are any of these changes your recommendation? I know there might have some words, there's been just a couple words changed. I don't know if that came from you or if it's additional cleanup. First I want to know if anything came from your recommendation.
We're talking general, right, isn't it?
Right.
Not on a particular one.
No, not a particular one. I just want to know if anything in here was recommended by you.
So in what is attached, I did make a recommendation, and I'm trying to refresh my own memory with regard to, I did add in on page 21, it looks 3.06B, the limitation on public comment is 2 minutes. I suggested that that be qualified because there will be issues that come before the county board that will need
more than 2 minutes. So I have unless
Point of
waived by
information.
the presiding officer.
Okay.
Wait a minute, Don.
Are we looking at?
Wait a minute, Don. Were you done, Mary?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I need to know, are we looking at 2A or are we looking at 2B? What are we supposed to be looking at?
And which attachment?
2A is the most current. That is with the changes that came out of the Democratic caucus on Monday night.
Thank you.
So,
Okay, I'm not sure that people are clear which one. So the one that you are referring to in the upper right-hand corner says 5.2A?
Correct.
Okay.
The file should say draft down to proposed.
Thank you.
I think I got it.
Was that helpful? Yes.
Don't trust me though.
Go ahead, Maura.
The rule that Mary is citing is 3.06, right to address the board and public comment. Under that, it is part B, where Mary suggested adding unless waived by presiding officer.
that's what I'm asking.
What page is that on?
Page 21.
It's page 21 on the document 5.2A in the upper.
Minutes has been crossed out.
Out of section 4 because that doesn't.
It was redundant in section 4.
B was added to address all rights.
So at this point then, for clarification, under
Oh,
4B, or no, B is not under 4, it's under the initial 3.06. B has been added, and it says any permitted public comment should be held to less than 2 minutes unless waived by the presiding official.
That came from the state attorney's
His office, right, and that's a suggestion from the state's attorney's office. So in the case where we need to talk longer, for instance, we may have some authority on a particular item. I'll just use as an example, it might be, I'll just use waste management as an example. If it were Chuck Helston, for example, who came forward to speak, that reasonably would be more than 2 minutes, or could be, just based on the complexity of the issue. So that might be an example of where whoever's presiding might waive that question.
Okay, the only other question I would have on that, and the reason I asked for yours first, Mary, is because it's easier to discuss you first, I think, or your recommendations first. It says unless waived by the presiding officer. Now, in this case, our presiding officer is not a member of the board. He presides over the meeting. Technically, the presiding officer cannot even participate in our meeting because he's not a member. So the board would be giving up its right, so to speak, or giving that authority to a presiding officer or to a non-member of the board. My preference is that it would go to county board leadership on the floor to waive it. But I'm just throwing this out so the board is aware of, presiding officer basically has the authority the board gives him. I mean, or her, but whoever the case may be at the time. So I want to get your view of, or do we agree that the presiding officer under the executive form of government is not a member of the board and cannot participate or make a decision for the board unless the board grants him that. So I'm just asking that. I mean, would we be giving up the authority of the board to the presiding officer?
Well, I think the statute gives the county executive the authority to preside over the county board meeting.
Correct.
And inherent in that is some decision-making with regard to the actual running of management.
But the 2-minute rule is a county board rule. It's not a statutorial rule.
Well, that's true.
So my point is that the rule, the county board rule, and if the board wants to give that authority to the presiding officer, that's fine. My experience has been is that over a number of presiding officers in the county board meeting, they do not enforce the 2-minute rule ever. And it gets a little frustrating, I think, sometimes on the board, from a board member perspective. I think sometimes that gets a little frustrating. But then the board member would have to intercede and make, point of order saying they've exceeded their time. So I agree with this, that there should be a limit. But since the presiding officer, I'm just pointing out today that the presiding officer is not a member of the board. It's a board rule. The board can do what it wants, so I'm just pointing that out today, that's all.
Right, I understand that. So for you then, it would make more sense to say unless waived by the presiding officer at the discretion of the board.
Yes, something like that.
Or upon a motion to suspend the rules and allow it.
Yes.
Would be
There.
Okay.
There we go.
Yeah,
That would be better. Thank you,
So
Mary.
can you add that?
So, is that acceptable to everybody here?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Mary? Yes, others?
I think that was the only one. That is highlighted that this one.
No one ever calls on you.
Just stand up. I got a question.
Denise, I had a question.
Steve?
Yeah, does that apply, the 2-minute rule apply to committees?
No, this would be at the board.
Okay, well, legally, according to Open Meetings Act, you have to have a rule for committee meetings too, just so you know.
Okay, that would be separate from this one. I hear what you're saying, Steve, but that's separate from this one.
It's in there.
Okay.
Yeah, this is just for the public comments piece. Okay. Okay, now take us to the next one. Yes,
You want to start back at the top?
please.
So then, I believe it's in your packet, the 5.2A copy in the right-hand corner. It would be Rule 1.03B. On my copy, it's page 4. Is everyone there?
Yes.
Again, Rule 1.03B.
So can I get that?
Why don't we have it on the presentation?
I do have
It would be nice to do that too.
Or just put it up on the big screen. Computer.
So Part B reads, the second line on Part B, all staff of the board shall serve the county board members at the discretion of the county board speaker. That is how that sentence. I apologize, I missed that word. All staff of the board shall serve the county board members at the direction of the county board speaker. That is the proposed change.
Really, most of my stuff is, I'm going to ask you probably to clarify exactly what does that mean. Currently, the county board members have access to the staff. They can ask them questions. They can ask them to do something, and so forth. Well, let me just explain how I used to do it. And so everybody had access. I would say, you can go to staff, you can ask them questions, or you can go to Melissa, you can go to Beth, and all that. and if there's something that they felt uncomfortable with, I would say then come to me. So if you feel uncomfortable with,
Right.
and I'll speak to the board members. Okay? So none of that changes.
Right.
None of it changed, and actually, Jim, this is to clarify that point, which just simply then, it's now in the rules that a board member can come to staff with simple questions, and as long as, if it is complicated or something that is more, not ready in nature to be given out to the entire board, then it would go to Denise, and she would then take the question or the issue up. So people just wanted to make sure that they had the ability.
Exactly what you said.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Just clarify.
Just clarify.
Everybody okay on that one? So then the next suggested change would be, Part C, that was a suggested change, would be taken out. So that will not exist at all as Part C on this set of rules that would be voted on. Correct, Denise?
Right, and that's what I understand from, we're talking about the leadership team, yes.
I do have a question to ask. Because some things are just been practiced and it hasn't been in the rules. I'm specifically going to talk about county board staff. The exception of the chief of staff. And the chief of staff is different because the chief of staff deals both with policy and day-to-day administration. I always look at the chief of staff who really have overall operational authority over the staff on a day-to-day basis. How they split it up, I never got involved. If I'll go back to Bruce. If Bruce said, well, Beth's going to be responsible for this, okay, Bruce tell him. And he may not have been a day-to-day because Beth did that. But the chief of staff kind of said who's going to be responsible for what. First exception to that would be our budget director, who basically is separate and is in kind of an equal footing with the chief of staff. But they work on budget. So the rest of the staff, and let me say that there's political implications to the chief of staff. Certainly, chief of staff serves as the pleasure of the speaker and the majority party. So I understand. But everyone else, I want to make it clear, everyone else there is a regular employee. And I see Mr. Tiswell there, and you can ask Bruce. I always went through HR. I never even interviewed people. I let HR do it, and then the staff did it, and then the staff made a recommendation. So I want to
And that's not changed.
So I just want to make it clear whether we need to, and I don't think we need to put it in here, but I follow the personnel policy that's in place for the executive's office, which we set. So I guess I just want to make it clear. I want to make sure that, with the exception of the chief of staff, that all our other employees are regular employees who have all the protections that all other employees have. That they're drum employees. And so, all those positions either became transferred in from another area, but they've always been posted. Bruce always put it together.
Right.
I didn't even do the interview. I didn't do the selection. I let the staff, I let Bruce do that. And then I let them make a recommendation who they thought would be the best person. So, I don't know if we need to, and Mary, I'm gonna look at you. Do we need to say that? Because to me, it's like, that's what it is.
Yeah,
But I don't need to say it.
there was a request at the Democratic caucus that I draft something to reflect what the current practice is, and that it be codified. So I will be working on that, and then there can be a vote in the future if you want to add that or not.
In absence of that, I guess what I want to say is that they're employees. They have the same rules, the same protections of any other employee. You can't just come and say, they're non-union. And I think I want to make a distinction Mary, between an employee who's non-union and an exempt employee. Because I do think there's a difference. The chief of staff would be an exempt employee. You know, just because you're non-union doesn't mean you're an exempt employee. Correct?
Correct.
So they have all the protections of any other employee.
Right. They are protected under the Fair Labor Standards Act. So there is no overtime or anything like that, and they are protected in that sense. Yes.
So I would say to my Democratic colleagues, if this was a subject for your caucus, I just want to say that, you know, we follow the law, we follow the labor laws, and we follow the personnel policy of Will County. And the personnel policy that basically applies to the executive's office, since that's basically our personnel policy. And Bruce, you might maybe to say, that's how it's always been?
That is how it's always been.
You know,
And that's how it's going forward.
okay. And jobs were posted and so forth. You know, regular people shouldn't be subject to, you know,
Right.
they should be
And you're
treated
exactly
fairly.
right. And it was a proposal by one of our members, a discussion brought out that it's not a necessary thing. And talking with Mike, we all agreed, we don't need it.
The regular folks.
It doesn't support what our practice is or what our intent is in terms of working here. So, yeah.
Any more discussion on that? Okay, the next change is on page 6 of my copy. It's Rule 1.05 under Section A at the bottom of the page, number 1. And I'll just give you a little background. There was discussion had by, I think, a lot of members about moving the budget process up. And as a response to that, the rule now will say for A1, said budget shall be submitted by the county executive to the county board at the regular August Will County Board meeting. Okay, and then the relationship will then flip the process, which you will see on the next rule change on the following page, page 7, B1, where it says the Will County Board hereby designates the regular September county board meeting for the making of the county executive's annual report to the board.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, why are we doing that? I mean, I understand August, but why are we going to do the state of the county after the budget?
Well, then the new budget information will be incorporated.
That's really changed.
You know, I may be the only one that's here. You know, Mary, I'm going to ask you to weigh in on this because, you know, the state of the county and the budget were done on the same day. For some reason, I'm thinking there was some reference in the state statutes to that.
Yeah, one of them has to happen in August.
So, you know, they can be in the same day, in the same quarter, which we did do for years. And then it was requested, I don't know if it started with the administration or not. I mean, I don't know if having the Mike in the administration, then we separated them. I don't know when we did it. It was an accommodation that was requested by the county executive, whoever it was at the time. And I don't know if it was meant to be a permanent accommodation. I think that there was a reason maybe we did it at that time. But I want to point out that basically the statute says that both will occur on the same day. And it is an option.
Mary, check the statute. If it says the same day, or that one of them has to
No, I don't
happen
think
at
they
once.
have to be the same day. But I do
Or maybe-
think that the state of the county report has to be in August.
At the annual meeting, it's on,
Yeah,
that's
which is,
September.
Okay.
yeah, sometime before we go to the recess.
I knew there was something in there, but I'm just saying, for many, many years, it was the same day.
While she's looking that up.
If we are going to do the budget in August, and then the state of the county is going to include budget information, it makes more sense to do it together.
Well, that's
The way
why
we're doing it now,
it kind of makes sense to doing the state first and then you're doing the budget, but we already have the budget implementation. Can't you just do them both together?
That's why we did it together. There was a reason that one year.
Well, check the statute.
And just, if I could make one more comment.
Yes.
Prior to now, I think there was some projections made because, as I'm sure it can be explained a little bit better by Melissa, but, right, because of, you don't know for sure
We
until
set the
October.
estimate of the aggregate levy in October, so it's all estimates at that time.
Okay.
Projections, estimates.
Oh, that's always.
Yeah.
That's
Something
always,
to add?
most of all.
Obviously, the state law drives all this, so whatever the state law says, and I don't have it committed to memory, but I believe it says reference to giving an annual report on the state of the county. I didn't recall if it said which month, but when this was discussed with a few individual board members, rather than, if we're going to do it in separate months, we thought it would make more sense to do it in September. We meet 12 months of the year, theoretically, so it doesn't matter what month it is. But one argument could be the budget, when we present it, is going to be even more tentative when we're presenting a month earlier, but it gives the board an extra month, and that was discussed throughout the fall. We talked about giving more time for the board to review it. So it's going to be a little more fluid, but it gives us more time to dig into departments and things at the county board level, because Rashawn is dealing with the departments throughout the year, and it was getting earlier. But there's an argument maybe to be made that if you give the budget address in August, now you've got numbers to kind of work with. The state of the county has been more budget and programmatic stuff, so it could kind of, here's the numbers, here's what we're going to work with, and in September you spend a separate meeting talking about what those dollars are going to drive, and now you've had a month to look at the numbers, so it made me make a little more meaning. And because I think our meetings sometimes do go longer, and it just putting it all in one meeting may be a lot to cover, but
I think that was part of the reason.
But it's been done both ways since the current county executive's been here. We've done it separately, and for a few years we did them, it was one address, not two addresses. But then it went back to two addresses, one for the budget and one for the, and the budget address, for those who haven't been here, is generally much, much shorter. The state of the county has fluctuated, but it's a little longer than the budget address, because the budget address is basically, here's the numbers, here's the book, we'll get into it in committees.
I don't think it makes a big difference. I mean, because the budget is basically like, say, here's the budget, look it over, and, you know, I mean, it'll be things like you think it's balanced or whatever.
Okay.
I guess it doesn't make
Mary, is there any
No,
requirements?
the only requirement is that the county executive prepare a report set in the month that the county will.
Okay, so we could do that. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Is there any resistance to this change?
Okay, well, I'm just going to ask, does that, so does this set two meetings?
Yeah.
So this put in the rules,
Right.
I think the board should leave some flexibility. So whether you want to do it in one report, one meeting, or you want to do it two. I'm just letting you know that it doesn't have to be two separate meetings.
Right.
And the budget basically here is, it's not like it's a like.
Right.
I'm just saying that you want to.
Thank you,
Right.
Laura. We could
Yeah,
say
that's a good
August
idea.
or September. What you may want to remember is because we do have a lot of new people at the August meeting, I would imagine, that even though here's the budget, here it is, there will be a slew of questions which would lengthen the meeting. So maybe we can do August or September, and then that way we can separate them if we think that we need to. There may be some contentious items, some questionable items that require more discussion on the first pass. And that gives us some time then to come back with the state of the county separately from that title.
My question would be, based off of what you said, don't we have to set a definite meeting?
I think it's important that the county executive knows what month he's going to be presenting it in. So my concern is, he's going to communicate that and when?
Okay.
If you leave it open.
Okay, so then we do need to make a commitment one way or the other. Suggestion, Mike?
So here's my thought. We obviously want to do budget, but it gives the board much more time. I personally think if he gives the budget address and then goes right into the state of the county, it may make more sense hearing the numbers and the address. If we wait a month, you know, you kind of forget what was said. We don't, and I don't know, the 6 years I've been here, we've never asked any questions of the executive at the budget address. That is just for him to give an address. We haven't asked questions. So it's not like there's going to be a lot of questions there. But if all that information is given in one nice package, and they can see, you know, what he's saying about where we're at and why the budget reflects this at the same time. So I would say August, but we'll.
Okay. So what's the pleasure of the group?
Yeah, no, I have a question.
Oh, Don, sorry.
Given that the county executive is statutorily required to give an annual report to the board, why do we care when it is? Why do we need to have it in our rules? He's required to give us that report. Let him give us that report.
We have to set the, when he gives
Whatever
it.
date the county board sets.
We have to tell him
And
when.
there is logic to doing it toward the end of the fiscal year, because then you understand the needs of the county when you're deciding on the budget.
So given we have to tell him when, what's the will of this group? All together, August. So those who are for one meeting, let's see a show of hands. That seems to be a majority. Okay. So then we need a motion for that. Okay, so then I need a motion then to put that in the rules that it will be the one meeting in August.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Laura.
So then, I will have August in both of those rules then.
Right.
Okay. The next change, and Madam Speaker, did you want to go over the changes we received just prior to this meeting?
One of them does,
Okay,
one of
all
them
right.
is tied to one of the things that's already in here. So maybe pick that up at that time and then go back to anything else.
Okay, so the next one is just on the next page, page 8. And there was some discussion about number 4 on page 8. It's under,
D.
yes, it's 4D. I was just getting the rule. It's under the 1.05 rule, but it's on page 8, number 4D. And it says appointee qualifications, and then in parentheses added to that, it will say upon request, resume if applicable. So there are some bigger boards where at times people have requested to see resumes. And I believe it, you know, those, if asked for and they exist, will be provided to board members on a case-by-case basis. Is that fair to say, Madam Speaker?
Yes. And for some of our boards, they're appointed, they may have like only $500 a year. Some of the bigger ones may have like around 20 or so thousand a year, which is not a fortune, but in terms of a board appointment, it could be. And so for those, people want to see more of the qualifications, why this person was chosen, what the background, like, yeah, exactly, Metro, RTA, those boards, what's the background of the person that's being proposed for an appointment. So in those cases then, the resumes will be a part of the package for the board members to be able to review beforehand, so that when they're voting about whether or not they want that person, they have a full background on that proposal.
I was going to say, one of our items has additions to this as well. So we have
That's what I was asking. So I think we'll go through these initially, or unless
Okay, and I had a question down here.
tie it in now. Well, Denise, what would you, some people are asking to tie it in now. What do you think?
Okay, so what is more convenient for this board? Maybe it is going to be easier to
Okay,
just
I
tie
can do
these
that.
out. Do you have a different question,
Yeah,
Jim?
I have a question, only, here again, I guess I'll look at two, is some of our boards, such as Historical Society, whatever, you know, even stormwater management, those are like internal Will County boards or commissions. The ones that come from like the state, like Metra, RTA, Tollway Authority, I don't know if we see Tollway Authority, but you know what I mean. You know, those rules and qualifications are basically set by the state of Illinois, correct?
Correct. Right, they set the rules. We were just asking to see the information.
Well, I'm just wondering if it's not something that the, like state aid or state doesn't require, can we require something above and beyond what the state does require? So if the state doesn't require a resume, then the state don't require a resume. I mean, usually when you look at these applications, it'll ask for experience, it'll ask for different things, but it usually doesn't say submit your resume. You know, it could be even the Joliet, I don't know about the Joliet, like Port Authority,
The state, I'm not an expert on the state process, but the state has an online application similar to what we have, and I don't recall how deep they go. But I guess is your question, are there, I mean, if there's state, I mean, all the names we bring forward hopefully have met any requirement from the state or whatever. Like in Pace's case, you have to be a mayor or a former mayor. Those are the only people that are eligible to serve on the Pace board. That's the law. So those are the only people we can bring forward.
I guess I'm saying if they require a resume, then there's no resume required.
And that's why it says only if applicable.
Only if applicable.
The danger is...
Because in the sense where they don't require, we are certainly not going to be asking for something that's not already in the statute.
I mean, it's almost, and I don't want to belabor this point, but it's almost like, this is like a, well, it depends. I mean, I think you really need to say, these appointments, we require a full-blown application, whereas like the one that I think is a little bit just cumbersome is like when we have county board members who are getting appointed, something we need to have them fill out the whole form and the resume, whatever. I don't know, maybe you guys want to see what everybody's background is, maybe that's helpful, but, or is it just like we know who Mark Ferry is, so he can be appointed to the stormwater board, you know, it's like, or do, you know, but there's other ones, like cemetery districts, I don't think you guys want to see all their background on that.
And I think
Mosquito basin districts, I prefer we don't make those appointments.
this was just to address because there had been some requests to see resumes if they had them, if they have been turned in, and those are kept obviously for HR purposes. You know, you don't give them out in droves.
That's been more for hiring than for boards and commissions. The boards and commissions, we came up with a form, I forget how many years ago, but that's the form that you see. I mean, we've continued to try to open it up, the process up. We put all the boards and commissions online. We put the statutory references, so if you have an interest, you can go research it yourself. We've tried to put what the qualifications are, what the makeup is. We've tried to put if they get compensation. There's very few that get compensation from Will County, but the state ones, some of those do have compensation.
I guess my other concern is this, is, you know, over the years, you know, I've had interview with many county board members to say, it's not your job, right? You know, it's not your job to go digging through HR files or whatever. You can ask some questions or whatever. I don't think that, and I'm talking about the Will County commissions, whatever they may be. Some may be there by law. For example, like ESCB board, it says, you know, you will appoint these people here, you will appoint. You can set up the makeup of the board. You know, and usually those are emergency management people, somebody from administration, and usually somebody from the county board. You know, my concern is that board members, selectively, you know, that's the part, start going and say, well, I want to see this person's resume.
Yeah.
You know, if we don't require it now, to make the applicable, I think there should be a clear understanding, we don't require it. Also, getting back to your thing about county board members, if there's boards or commissions that require a county board member to be appointed, like the health department, says there will be a county board member, if there's so many population, you get two, or whatever. No, I don't think the county board member needs to give you a full-blown application. It requires a county board member to be appointed. You know, that is something that, you know,
Those generally have come through.
leadership and administration works out, right? I just want to point that out.
Right. I'm thinking more like the Stormwater Committee, which it can be a county board member, or it can be someone from your district. And many board members have either served or found someone from their district to fill those, because we still have a few vacancies there.
Do I think county board member needs to fill a resume out to go on the stormwater management?
That's what but
the answer is no.
But the rules say that, and we've had people question us, why aren't you submitting an application?
What rule is that now? Whose rule is that? That's county board rule?
I believe.
I don't recall. Maybe you can just bring it to me.
Yeah, I'll look and see
later.
Yeah.
I think you
So,
should take care of it.
I'm listening to the discussion here. It sounds like the right thing is to leave 4D as it stands without the parentheses, without the parenthetical comment about requests, resumes, and
I think so.
It seems like that's appropriate. And I will say this, that we do not want to ever be in the position of usurping the HR function. That is not our role as the county board. Certainly was not the intent of this. So for whoever would have thought that we want to have more control over that, I want to see this, I want to see that, that's not appropriate.
Not our job. I'll make a motion that we remove that upon request resumes that will be removed.
Thank you. Second? In favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
So you won't see the changes are in the same section there. They don't exist as current, but I do believe a copy was passed out to everyone of some additional changes that were submitted by the other Republican caucus. And it would add an H and an I to that number 4. And the H would read, it's not, you won't see it on there, it was handed out. Everyone has.
I'm sorry, more. Which number 4?
Same number 4 on page 8.
Number 3 on the sheet.
And H would read compensation of position. So that would be a requirement then for information contained on the possible position that would be appointed. And I don't know if you want to talk about the proposed H separately from the proposed I, but proposed I would say a list of other positions that you are appointed to by the Will County Executive. And I believe, and I just want to clarify that means if you are applying to be appointed to something and you are already serving on a committee or already appointed to something, that you would have to list what else you currently are serving on. Is that?
Yes, the concept behind it, you just don't know what the compensation is of that appointment, and if there are other appointments that you've already been appointed to. So if a person's been appointed to 3 different things, you want to know it. What other appointments do you have?
So we currently furnish the information about the compensation for each of the positions. When we say these appointments are coming up and she puts that out there, so you need it more than that.
Well, I thought it was not always on there.
So it didn't used to be, and this board asked for it, and
It's
so
just not a
now,
rule, that's all.
so this board asked for it, and so now it is. When she says this position is up for appointment, the compensation, whether it's yearly, monthly, or whatever, is on there. The other thing is, so, yes, the staff does provide that. So, that is now.
But it's not in our rules.
It's not in the rules. So if so you're asking for it, just in the rules to say that it will always be provided.
Yeah. Since we get it anyway, it's there to be asked for.
And the other one is, for example, if I'm appointed to a position, how many other positions am I appointed? How many other positions have I been appointed to?
I want to take some exception with that, by the way. And the exception is county board members. Many county board members wind up on more than one thing. You know, I mean, this idea, so I would exclude county board members. I mean, you just say, you know, we kind of know who's appointed to what, but, you know, I mean, I was probably at one time on a half a dozen. You know, some of them by rule, you know. I mean, I was on, excuse me, workforce. I was on, I want to say HUD, what is it?
CDBG.
CDBG. I was on CDBG. I was on, and some of that was required as my position as a county board member. So I got a CDBG, I was on workforce, I was at the Public Building Commission, you know. So we have board members on the health department, maybe at workforce. So, you know, I don't know if that should apply to county board.
Why is it not good for us to know that? I mean, not everybody always knows what boards everybody's on.
I'd say that.
You know, because, you know,
I guess I'm wondering, hold on a minute.
What's the point?
Why do you need to codify that? Because that's flexible at any given time based on the thing. If there are people outside the county board, and this is just my own thought on this, if there are people outside the county board who are appointed to multiple positions, that's one thing. But for county board members, I would have to say, the nature of the position or the district, it may be that a particular area or region is required, but that is the nature of the work. The work is that as a county board member, you are responsible for certain boards, certain positions. So that's it, done.
It could say appointed, required next to it. So that's required in the position.
Here's why I'm not comfortable with I. Because you might have people that either if they're on a county board or some other board, whatever, the county executive appoints somebody to something, that doesn't really give you the picture. I sit on a CED and I sit on a workforce investment board, neither one of which is on behalf of the county. Okay,
That's not what we're asking.
I understand
Only
that,
accounted by the county.
so what's the point? Because I serve on 2 other committees, somebody else that was appointed by the county executive sit on 2 committees. You know about them, but you don't know about me, so what's the point?
Yeah.
So what?
Yeah. Nick?
I'm looking at the online application, which I'm going to check to make sure this is 100% reflected. We have a hard copy of this too, but it asks basic contact information. It asks if you're an elected official, if you are, what office, current employment with titles and duties, which I don't know why we don't know that, civic activities, list of current or previous boards and commissions, and professional organizations. And it asks, have you ever been employed or held office with a state or local government? If yes, explain. So that's all on the application right now. Whether everybody fills all that out or they just put NA, we don't do a background check on people to make sure they're telling the truth, but we ask for references too, so that people know kind of where they're coming from. If you don't know the person, but you know one of their references, you can call them and say, hey, do you know Bob? Do you know Mary? Are they good? Would they be a good fit for our workforce investment board? Or, you know?
Or maybe we just separate the question as, on the application as current boards you serve.
Yeah.
Well, it's current or previous, so.
Yeah, current or previous. Judy has a question?
No, just a comment. So the point of listing the other positions appointed by the county executive is just to know if one individual that we're appointing to multiple boards, we appoint, doesn't matter if Don serves on 2 boards, he would list in that other section, but if we appoint to those boards and we've appointed him to that board and he's appointed to this board and that board, the point is for us to understand that Don has been appointed to 6 boards and Ken isn't, and he would like to be, so maybe we could have that up. Well, I think everyone should have that right versus one person being in the room maybe, or whatever the consequences was of him getting all the appointments and Ken wasn't. I think it's fair to distribute rather than have one person have a lot of power by being on multiple boards that we appoint.
So some boards, by the nature of their setup, require particular positions from the county to serve on those boards. So are you asking then that all positions not covered by requirement then be spread? Because there is a requirement on some of the boards.
Some are required, sure. Some are required.
Particular person, I see you.
Like
That's
that's leadership.
Yeah, right. So are you asking beyond that position then? If there are other slots, if there are multiple slots on the board?
Well, even if they're required, in my opinion, if they're required, that we have, say, a mayor. I think that we should not always choose, say Jackie's the mayor, she's the mayor next to me right now. If she's the mayor, I don't think she should be the only one who's on there, because Ken is also mayor, and I would want to give him the opportunity of serving on a board rather than choosing Jackie a second time. So I would like to know that.
Okay, but you wouldn't be the one giving those opportunities, it would be the county executive.
But if it's on the application.
Right, but it
Yes,
comes
and it's on
through.
the application.
Yes, he does, but we can deny it then, right? We can say, well, no, we would rather have, because we can put up somebody else.
And you can't do that now. I see Tyler and then Don.
Somebody's gonna turn off their mic. My question is, since we get a list of all county executive appointments in December, I think we just got it, isn't this already covered? Because I mean, we have, I looked at it, we got the list of it. Yeah, but you have the list to compare it to. Yeah, I thought, wasn't that the list that?
Yes. And by your rules, the county executive is required to turn that over to you at the beginning of each year.
I just want to make sure I'm not missing something.
No, you're right on, Tyler. Down.
Couldn't we solve this same problem by just asking who all applied for the position? Because in a lot of cases, there's only one person that exhibits any interest in participating. And that's why they get appointed to a lot of boards. Maybe they got more free time, more energy, more knowledge on certain subjects. And if we knew these three people applied for the position, then you'd have a better idea of what was going on than you would if the county executive appointed one person to 5 different committees.
Okay, I have one question now and a comment. First, my question is where and how does a board member get the opportunity to indicate if the position is available and to express an interest? Because I'm not aware of that. Second, my comment is that I think I is important because if you find that the appointments are unbalanced, and let's say somebody is appointed and they're already on 3 committees and has 2 other appointments, perhaps you should give the opportunity to someone who hasn't had that opportunity. So those are
Nick?
Just to reiterate, and I've said this before, but I'm going to say, because I think it's important. Number one, per the existing rules or previously adopted rules, we are required to submit to the board a list of all the appointments for the coming year. So that way you have a list of all the coming year. So that are expected. There's always people who resign during the year, those are new. But several years, many years back now, we created an online database. So you can see every appointment we make, every person who's in that spot currently, 24/7, 365. You can go on there. And as far as application, we have taken letters of interest all the time. If we don't have an existing vacancy, we keep them on file. But on our online process, it's under the county executives page, you can nominate yourself or nominate somebody else, and you can pick which board or commission. So you could apply for them all if you want. Now, the fact is, there are boards like the cemetery districts, the drainage districts. If we can just find somebody who's willing to show up at a meeting, it's a victory. I mean, as we're sitting here, I'm thinking, I'm going to group all these by those kind of appointments, and then the ones that probably you really care about, that are like the RTA, the PACE, the METRA, the tollway is the governor makes those appointments, not the county. But the workforce, but I'll also say, because I think this is worth saying, we have made a conscious effort, we as a county, to diversify our boards. I mean, we've not been completely successful. There's still a need for more diversity on our boards. But like our Workforce Investment Board, by law, is required to be 51% or greater business. We've tried to go well beyond that and get all reaches of the county, all areas of the county. But the other ones, like the Planning and Zoning Commission, that's spelled out by the rules of the law, specifically what areas they have to come from. And there's only there's a limit on how many from which areas. So. And if any board member has a question or an interest or has a constituent that's interested, come talk to us and we'll see if there's an opportunity. If it's not a county commission, maybe there's some state commission we could recommend them for and push, because there are a number of state commissions too. But they've been a lot. But the last thing I'll say is, Will County, I believe, hasn't done this, but DuPage County helped pass a law that gave them the ability to take some action on their own to get greater accountability of their boards and commissions because they had some issues. So there is possibly some additional action. I don't know that you want to go down that road, but I know DuPage had some issues at some of their boards and commissions. They had like 20 mosquito abatement districts, and they were doing like 16 different contracts, or maybe more than that. We only have like 1 or 2, so, but we're glad to talk about that offline.
Okay, thank you, Nick. We've had quite a bit of discussion, and we'll bring it back tomorrow.
So just to be clear, currently, you have to go through and fill out the online form or the paper hard copy, and it does ask you whether you are currently on a board, what you serve on. It does not contain the information about how much money you will make, if any, on the board. So that would be an addition, correct, Nick?
It doesn't ask if you're being compensated for other boards.
Oh, but
on our website, and I'm not going to say it's perfect, because if there's a correction, please let us know. But on our website, we do list whether positions are compensated or not. And I know the board office double checks that to make sure, because that's been a request in the past. But it's on the website.
Okay, so H would contemplate adding to this rule that it would be necessary to list the compensation of the position.
We already give that information. It's not listed in our rules, but we already give that information. So I would suggest there's really not a value to adding H or even I, given what's already available to people if they want to check the information. But we would need a resolution to leave those off. They're not on. Okay, so we would need what? Nothing. We don't need anything. I would suggest that we ignore those. That would be my own thought, but I don't know. What is the will of this board?
Someone would have to make a motion to place it on if they want it.
Okay. So then we'll leave H and I out. Okay.
Okay. The next change, and I just, is a grammatical change put forth and caught, thank you, I believe it was Judy or Mike, by the, on page 10, it should be a possessive in number 8, where it says, general administration appointments shall be based solely on a candidate. There should be a apostrophe there. So that will be added unless there's any discussion on it. Okay. Then also another grammatical change, page 12, under 2.03, standing committees, section C, part 5, or Roman numeral V. It's simply changing in the third line the word hearings to and hearings, just a grammatical change. So if no discussion, I'll move on. Page 12, yeah. The next, which will not be on your paper as a change, but it is number 5 on the handout. On page 15 of your rules, number 5, part 3, currently it reads, identifying the changing needs of Will County's aging and disabled population. It was suggested that we also include and Sunny Hill Nursing Home to that sentence.
Oh, they mostly hear from.
Because that's a county-owned facility, county-run facility.
I'll second it.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
So Mary, just to be clear, that's not currently in it. They made a motion and to place it on there, and that's okay then? Okay. That will be added then. Okay. The next one is on page 19, and I will say this, number 3 under Rule 3.01, currently it reads invocation. The Democratic Caucus spoke about it, and their proposed amendment to that was invocation or moment of reflection. And the Republican caucus came with the change this morning to remove the or moment of reflection. So the question is whether or not that section's going to be kept in.
What's the will of the group?
I just want to point out what was pointed out at our caucus. Somebody went back and looked at the last, I believe it was 12 or 13 meetings, and they pointed out that 7 of the invocations were done by members of the board. And based on our prior discussion about how that looks to the public and how that could potentially expose us, it was mentioned that if a board member could not get a pastor, a imam, whatever, to come in and do an invocation, or somebody canceled at the last minute, rather than have a board member do it, we thought it would be beneficial that we just put in the or moment of reflection so that we could do that in place of allowing a board member to give an invocation. The issue was having a board member do it.
And I could speak to that just a little bit, Denise, if you'd like me to. We want to avoid the potential of any bias. So in that sense, having a board member give the invocation and then possibly taking a vote on something later, and maybe one of the audience members did not participate in the invocation. We want to make sure that the public understands that a moment, we can have a moment of silence or an invocation, and if anyone wants to bring in someone of another faith, great. And if that person cannot make it, though, we would then just have a moment of silence instead of a board member.
Denise?
And that way we not don't have any liability of somebody saying the reason I didn't get what I wanted is because you did this.
Well, the first person I would look at, as far as liability goes, it would be the Mary. But before I ask Mary about liability, I think it should be taken out. Look, historically and traditionally, we've had invocation, we've had a prayer. You can call it what you want. Quite frankly, and this gets, I guess, to be a little bit more about I don't want to say emotional side, or how I think people can interpret this. My interpretation is to eliminate prayer. Now, that's my interpretation. I'm not going to debate it or argue with anybody. I'm just telling you how I interpret it. I think that there's nothing wrong with a board member doing the invocation. I don't see where it creates any liability. But any of us can do it. I don't care if you want to go through every single county board member, just have a list and say you're next if you want to do it. That certainly doesn't show any bias. It doesn't mean you have to get something religious initiatives. My thing would always be, hey, God, let us do the right thing. Let me do the right thing, please. I think it sends a different kind of message. I think it's, quite frankly, sends out a message of, maybe I'm taking a little over the top of anti-religious, anti-God, whatever you want to put it. If you're a non-believer, be a non-believer. But I think that having I'm going to call it a prayer to, ask for guidance for us to all do the right thing, and have the strength to have the right thing. This is a good thing. So I would not be supportive of the amendment or the change.
Well, I can say that for me, I'll be praying regardless, but for Mary, is there, and this, what comes to my mind is the reason why in the house or whatever they have a chaplain, which is separate from the members. but I would rather have state's attorney speak to that issue.
So,
there is one.
As you've indicated, there's nothing wrong with having an invocation. The United States Supreme Court has ruled on that and said legislative bodies may have an invocation, may have a moment of prayer. There is a federal decision out of Michigan where there was a local legislative body where only the members of that local legislative body gave the invocation. And the decision, and I understand the reasoning behind it, was that then gave the appearance that it was the board that was presenting the prayer. It was their views, and there were some additional comments about, requiring the public to, participate, and it just went over the top. That being said, I don't think the occasional invocation given by a county board member when we don't have anyone else crosses that line. I am a little concerned about the number of times where we have had the occasion to do that in the last year, because it is getting to the point where more than half the time that has happened. That being said, I think that if the county board wishes, they can attempt to do some other outreach to make sure that all of the faiths understand that they are welcome to give the invitation and would be allowed to do so. We certainly have the opportunities available. So, how you want to express that, I don't know that you need to put in there moment of silence in your rules. If at some point we've reached a point where Mr. Brooks or Ms. Fritz have given the invitation several times and we would just, prefer to do a moment of silence instead, we can do that. There's nothing requiring, if you don't have someone to do it, you don't have someone to do it.
Denise?
Or you could even ask a member of the public to do it.
Yes.
So they don't have to be a pastor or a minister.
Or maybe you could help us find a permit. Maybe we can find a...
Well, the pay is flat anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Maybe we can find the same person to come. That's all I do.
And right. And I know that in the past we have reached out to board members, can you bring somebody? And the issue, what typically comes up is that for many people, because you're coming here, you're here like 10 minutes or so and then go back. For some people, the idea of driving here, doing that, and then going back is overwhelming. Steve, are you adding something to the conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. I called the Center for Law and Justice. It's Jay Sekulow's group, and he reviewed with me the Supreme Court ruling that Mary just discussed. And under that ruling, as a county board member, I'm able to stand up. If you call a moment of silence, I can stand up after that and start reading chapters from the Bible if I want, or giving my own invocation. So I can call point of order, and they said they said if there was a problem that I could file a lawsuit, which I will, and they will represent me for free. Just so you know. So the better idea of this is real simple. Tell all the board members that, can we get some people? Because if you tell one, maybe one person can't get them. If everybody knows to get a pastor or a minister or whatever, and it don't have to be, like Jim said, any faith. But if you don't want to hear the Bible heard in my terrible reading, because I can't see the letters good, you're going to have that, because I will stand up and read for 2 or 3 hours from the Bible. I promise you. And then when you tell me no, I will have my lawyer come and sue.
So, thank you, Steve. Mary, did you?
I don't have anything further. As I said, I think we could, if you prefer, we can do some more outreach, maybe post on the website that this is available. If you're interested, please notify us, similar to what we do for appointments, and try to open it up a little more.
Maybe we can get more participation. Ken?
Basically, that's what I'm hearing also. If it's the individual, the number of times they're doing it, or if it's the application. Like Jim said, Mary said, and even part of what Steve said, if we're going to outreach, I'll offer my service to help outreach.
Thank you. Share that with Lon and Beth, because they have had struggles getting board members to do exactly that. They've reached out and people either don't do it or the person they tried to get does not come. I saw Rachel's hand first and then you.
I just want to know, is there currently, not necessarily in the rules, but a process that we suggest people keep under a certain time limit? Is that something that we...
Or it's usually very brief. Yeah, there's not a time limit because it's very brief. Julie.
Yesterday, I just forwarded a name to Lana and Beth of a pastor who's more than happy to come in as frequently as we need him. He was even available as of yesterday, so.
Thank you. That'll help the process. Lori?
I'm in agreement with Jim. I think we need to get a permanent chaplain. I think maybe that would kind of waylay everything. But as for myself, I did reach out to people. Judy and I
know some people have, but it's
64
very
miles
hard.
round trip for 3 minutes.
Yeah,
and
that's an issue.
When you're taking them away from their duties as the ministers out by us, because the minister for the church that I go to, that's his full-time job. That's a 2 to 3 hour for 2 minutes.
And that's been consistently an issue for us, Jim and Judy.
I was just going to say, it doesn't always have to be a minister. You can get
be
a deacon to come. There's a lot of different types of people who can come. And quite honestly, if you had a friend that said, I'll come and give an invocation. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody from the church, right? I mean, Herb might have he might have a member of his congregation that gives much better invocations than him.
So I was just going to make a comment. My understanding of how this process worked was we would rotate through the county board and the person would say, hey, Tyler, we're looking at your district today or next month, and you can see if you find somebody. But I was only asked one time, that I've been on the board for 6 years now, and I've only been asked one time to find a member from my area.
Okay, then.
So in my opinion is, that isn't the point. The point is, I'm sure there's other people from my area that might come, but I've never asked again because I was only asked to look for one time. So,
okay, so regardless of when, so the question though is, do we want to leave it as invocation or invocation and moment of reflection? I'm hearing that there may be some willingness to leave it as invocation with the understanding that we will push for more outreach to get people from a variety of districts and a variety of religions, people who are non-religious, to come and speak to the group. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay.
So make a motion for a moment of silence.
We don't have somebody present. And we will pay attention to how often members of our body are the ones doing the speaking. Does that satisfy our concern, Mary?
Absolutely. No.
All right. So, then what else do we need at this point? We need a motion to leave it as it stands.
No, to remove
the proposed change. And you second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then just down to number 9 on that same section, it will say honorary proclamations, not honorary resolutions.
Make a motion to approve that change.
Question?
Lana, can you please mark me as a no? There was no request made.
I'm sorry. Let's back up because that is appropriate. On the previous resolution, all those against?
Aye.
Any others? Thank you. Thank you, Jackie. Okay, now we're on to...
We're on to page 25.
Mike made the motion to make that change for the
proclamations, and I didn't call it backed up. So on the one for Mike's proclamations versus resolutions, we have a motion and a second. Those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Would you?
Yeah, I'm a yes. There wasn't previous rule, I just said yes.
Yeah, we just want to check. Thank you. Okay.
All right, page 25, rule 4, Roman numeral 4, under purchases and business travel reimbursement, it will be changed to read, board members who wish to attend any conferences, seminars on behalf of the board or that relate directly to board business must contact their respective caucus leader to seek any reimbursement, and then in parentheses, registration fees, travel, parking, etc., period. All requests will be granted only by the speaker as the budget permits if a request is granted, and then it goes on to say board members will be entitled to business and travel reimbursement consistent with the Will County Business Travel Reimbursement Regulations, which I believe everyone has a copy of.
Right, and that is not different than our current practice. It is just codifying that in here. What we currently do is, as budget permits and as requests come in, we look at those, see if that's something that falls reasonably within the board rules or board needs, and then grant those accordingly.
Motion.
Motion to accept the change. Second.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The only other change that was proposed that will not be on your in your agenda because we received it, it'll be on the handout, proposed by the Republican caucus, was a request for a list of current appointed positions within the county executive office and the county board. So I'm not certain where that rule would be placed if it were to be put into action.
Not a rule.
Not, okay, it's already been, so skip that?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I believe that's all I have unless anyone saw anything
Somebody
else.
wanted to have
Okay.
Okay, that's all I have with the rules.
Okay, so, given the discussion and what the changes have been made now, we need, I believe, Mary, a resolution moving forward.
Motion
To move it
As amended.
as amended. We have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. So that goes forward. Now. Ooh, that was okay, now, hopefully some people are still here for the rest of the agenda. Appropriating grant funds in the sheriff's budget from Department of Homeland Security. Any questions? Did you need to share anything other than what's already in the packet with us?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very
So it's moved
much.
and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? The next one, which is the tax abatement request for El Guerro's supermarket, that would be a replacement of the certified warehouse on Jackson Street, and actually bigger than that. It's going to be moved to the February agenda. The paperwork isn't totally over yet. I spoke with the city of Joliet this morning at the CCP meeting earlier. They have got the deal. They're finishing up the paperwork. They'll bring that to us.
Motion to table.
Remove it, then you can bring it back as a while.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Authorizing the county executive to execute the necessary documents for delinquent tax programs.
Second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Renewing contract for pharmaceutical and consulting services at Sunny Hill.
Second.
Favor? Opposition? The next one is setting the salary for the county executive legal counsel. I believe that you're going to bring that back to us.
I'm going to ask that that be tabled, not removed. We will bring it back and we will submit a full kind of detailed duties and explanation of what we're doing for the next, you'll have it in advance of the next executive.
Motion to table.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the next two impacting the Diamond Enterprise Zone, and I believe we don't have the paperwork ready.
No, we do.
Oh, we do now?
So I have the mayor,
Oh, that's
Mayor
right,
Terry
you two were there yesterday. Oh.
Well, we needed to, okay, well, we need an
And we have with
explanation.
us today Mayor
We've had
Kern,
her
who is
sit here for
proposing that we,
So, Mayor,
thank you, Mayor Kern.
Thank you so much, Traynere and Executive Board, for meeting with me on this item today. We really appreciate it.
We do, and we're at the discussion now. Thank you.
Okay. Would you please pass this around? I don't know, I think you already got it, but just in case. Diamond, our enterprise zone was designated January 1st, 2016. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with Diamond, the humongous village of Diamond. We have 2,700 folks living in Diamond. The enterprise zone is currently 12 square miles. And our enterprise zone encompasses less than 1 square mile. So we were very excited with the opportunity to be able to offer the enterprise zone to Will County, Grundy County, other municipalities if they needed it. So in this case, I don't know if you've heard of the Grundy County Economic Development Council, but Nancy Norton approached me on behalf of Competitive Power Ventures. They would like to be included in our enterprise zone, and they are doing a $1 billion privately funded 1,100 megawatt natural gas powered 2x1 combined cycle facility that will provide electricity to power 1.1 million homes. It's a 30-acre site in unincorporated Grundy County. It's in the Three Rivers area, just south of Exelon's Dresden Generating Station, in Goose Lake and southwest of the mouth of the Kankakee River. We're very excited that this project will create 500 construction union jobs for about 2.5 years. And after it's open, there'll be 25 full-time, very high-paying jobs with a $3 million payroll and benefit package. So we believe this is a regional project, which is what we wanted to get involved in. We're a small community. I have 8 employees. We can't handle a lot of these, but if they're regional, we can definitely do it. So Exelon actually welcomes CPV and does not see the project impacting them. What we need from both Grundy and Will County, because we have a map, and I included the map that we'll use for the route in your packet. This is not a physical route. We don't annex property, we don't get easements, but this is a route that will connect the CPV and allow us to put them in our enterprise zone. They actually calculate the route is 3 foot wide, and that is calculated into the acreage that will be removed from our 12 square miles. So that is what the route does. Grundy County currently is in the LaSalle, Ottawa, Grundy County Enterprise Zone. They only have 3 square miles. So they're trying to use their 3 square miles prudently. And Nancy's idea was to put CPV in the Diamond Enterprise Zone so that they could save their remaining acreage when they redevelop the shuttered Collins Station. So I can understand her reasoning on that. It makes a lot of sense. And this will be the first major project in our enterprise zone that Diamond does. So the idea of doing a $1 billion project is very appealing for me. It gives us credibility that will be a good zone. So what we need from Will County is simply the ability to move through a portion of unincorporated Will County property and then through the unincorporated Grundy County property to get to CPV. So that's why I'm here today. We have an intergovernmental agreement, and today I'm requesting that you consider adopting a resolution that will allow and authorize the county executive to sign the intergovernmental agreement. At that point, we will know, Grundy County signed theirs earlier this week, so they're already on board. We needed to know before we got much further that both counties were actually on board. After you do that, Diamond will approve the intergovernmental agreements with both counties, and then we'll have a public hearing, and then Grundy and Will County will both adopt ordinances. At that point, we'll prepare the state application, and it will come back to both counties for signature. So there is a very lengthy process regarding enterprise zones, and we are trying to stick through that process. So Nick, I'll turn it over to you.
And I'll just say before Nick comes on, he's going to join us, is this allows us to be good neighbors without any actual expense to us. And it's, as Mayor Kern has said, it is a regional thing, so it allows us to participate in that wise. Nick?
So we put both items on the agenda just to give us maximum flexibility. This is just, those of you who've been through this before, sometimes we do the IGA and the ordinance at the same time. What the mayor is requesting, just that we approve the resolution that gives the county executive the authority to sign the IGA, but we, and I'll defer to Mayor if she wants to jump in, we won't sign the IGA until they bring back the ordinance and do it all at once, because the IGA requires references to the ordinance. But this, as the mayor said, this gives them the ability to know that the county's on board. It really doesn't impact Will County directly, but it does, the jobs are there for our residents to go right across the border. Diamond is a Will County community also, and they've been good partners, and as Denise said, it's a regional approach. And this is very similar to, we've had other projects like this. The J Power is a similar type project. It's in Will County, but any questions, we can defer to Mary or...
Jackie had a question.
I just wanted to say kudos to the mayor and her staff for providing us a document that is environmentally friendly. I have never seen this kind of staple before. Some of you may have. I just want to point it out and suggest that maybe we could consider doing this in Will County. Very friendly to your paper shredder, doesn't, waste any natural minerals in our country or whatever we make staples out of these days. For all I know, they're made out of plastic or chemical, but I don't think so. Yeah, I think they're still metal. Lord knows where we get it. I got one of those too, but I prefer not to have to worry about it. Plus, staples are painful, they're injurious, they're nasty. This is really cool. Thank you.
Question here.
Yeah, I do understand cooperation and regional projects and how it does benefit a region, but I'm just curious, Mayor, what the right benefit to Diamond. I'm not worried about that. But is there going to be any direct?
Well, this is our test. I sold it to my board that we wanted to be good neighbors and help others with our enterprise zone. When you are an enterprise zone, you can charge a fee, and the fee can be, I believe it's 0.5% of the total construction cost. So not to exceed $50,000. So in this particular case, the Village of Diamond will bill $50,000. Now we have a enterprise zone administrator, and he and I will actually, when the contractors start working for this project, they will need to be entered into the state website and a certificate created so that they can purchase their construction material with no sales tax.
Right.
So it will generate a lot of work on our part to do that. I anticipate probably 50 contractors, maybe 100. So this is the test to make sure I have not extended Diamond further than we can successfully handle. I'm learning it myself as we go so that I can assist. But this is the first time we've done it. We've never helped anyone before. On other projects that are smaller, then the fee would be much lower. That's a new thing that the state did, because prior to this, they were allowed to require much heftier fees, and I suspect maybe the state thought it was getting out of hand. So they did absolutely clamp down on fees.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else? Okay, so before Denise stepped out, she reminded me that there's already a motion and a second on the floor. So now we can call for a vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And hopefully someday we can be of assistance to Will County. So we'll look forward to doing that. Thank you so much.
Okay, next on the agenda, discussion regarding recapture money from Laraway Sewer and Water.